Hello everyone, my name is Taimur Seyfullahi. I am an observational astronomer and postdoctoral researcher at Observatory of Strasbourg in France. I am interested in studying small and faint galaxies, galaxies that we generally call them dwarf galaxies. And nowadays, in particular, I am interested in studying the properties of global clusters of these dwarf galaxies. These global clusters are very compact accumulation of tens or hundreds of thousands of stars, and every dwarf galaxy may have a few of these or more around it. So this is also one of the main topics that we studied in our recently published paper with the data of Euclid. And for that, we looked at a very special part of sky. If you look at the distribution of galaxies in the sky, you can see that they're not distributed uniformly. This figure here is a map of nearby galaxies, and every red point here represents a galaxy. You can see that galaxies create these filamentary shapes, and in some cases, there are overdensities. These overdensities are what we call galaxy clusters. And the two overdensities I'm showing here are actually two very famous ones and the most nearby galaxy clusters to us. The one on the left is the Virgo galaxy cluster at 54 million light years, and the one on the right is the Fornax galaxy cluster in a bit further distance than Virgo at about 65 million light years. The Fornax cluster was also the target that we studied with Euclid and with these ERO observations. So for that, we looked at the center in the core of the Fornax cluster around the galaxy NGC 3099. What I'm showing here does not represent the whole Fornax cluster, and the whole Fornax cluster would be several times more than all you see here. But you can also compare the field of view of Euclid in one exposure, shown with this red square, compared to a field of view of Hubble Space Telescope, shown in blue. And you can see how much information Euclid will bring for us, provide for us with one exposure compared to the previous space telescopes, while it has similar resolution. Given that in this field we had about 10 massive galaxies, but also many dwarf galaxies, about 30 out of some hundreds of dwarf galaxies in the Fornax cluster. For example, just looking at this dwarf galaxy on the bottom, we can see that there are several points around the object. Some of them are global clusters, but some are not. So the task here for us is to identify these global clusters and to say if the object that we see around the dwarf galaxy is a global cluster, or actually it's a star that is in our Milky Way, or it might be a very far away background galaxy. So we had to go through some analysis, and every analysis of a new instrument has challenges that we had to deal with. But once we could understand our instrument and our data, we could identify these global clusters. Here I'm showing 6 of these 30 dwarf galaxies that we studied, and global clusters are shown with these red circles. Once we have these global clusters, something that we can do is to observe them with our biggest ground-based observatories to do spectroscopy, measure velocities, measure ages, and also metal contents of these global clusters, and tell more about, for example, the amount of mass and dark matter within these galaxies, and also the formation history of these dwarf galaxies. At the end, having this understanding of the properties of global cluster around these dwarf galaxies, we can also talk about how these properties are connected to the dark matter properties of galaxies. For example, we know that some galaxies, some dwarf galaxies have more global cluster than others, and it seems that is related to the amount of dark matter, that the ones with more global clusters have more dark matter. But this connection might be more complicated, and we need bigger samples, more than 30 dwarf galaxies, to study this in more depth. And hopefully, in the future, with the data of Euclid, we will have data of maybe some tens of thousands of dwarf galaxies. And we can answer this kind of questions about dwarf galaxies, about the global clusters, and about the dark matter content. Thank you.